Let us explore a Q&A and then meditate like a Jedi. Quick like a bunny, I need to edit something. Let's see here. Title teaser. Let's see here. Q and A and then... All right, that'll work. Excellent. So now, how's about the Q&A? Let's hit button 8. Beginner need advice. Hi, a few months ago I began, I'm reading from Reddit. Hi, a few months ago I began doing guided meditations on YouTube and found those relaxing and calming. But I am struggling to meditate myself with no music or sound. And stop right there. I once knew a guy who said that his meditation teacher always used music to help him meditate, and that he couldn't meditate without music. And I tried to warn him that, the Buddha didn't have a quartet of musicians with him wherever he went. He was raised the son of a prince with every luxury, and then when he became a monk, all those luxuries were stripped away from him. And if the more tchotchkes we use, the more we need, the more limited we are. It's kind of like we are imprisoned by our own luxuries. And so it really is important to learn how to meditate in the absence of tchotchkes that can be taken away from us by a thief or by a cop. Let's continue. I begin by doing diaphragm breathing and continue through my meditation. Once in the meditation, I enter my subconscious thoughts, which is a lot of random thoughts, but this is where I get confused. Some people say accept the thoughts and let them pass and focus on breathing, and others have said let your breath go and let the thoughts pass and simply observe what your subconscious has to say. Also, when I'm in the subconscious state of meditation, I feel like I could fall asleep easily. I'm not sure if I'm discovering anything. I'd like to learn more about my subconscious blockages that could be holding me back. So, bravo for this person. So I really respect their intention and their effort and their enthusiasm. So first things first, we're going to begin with their comment about diaphragmatic breathing. So what I'm going to do now is drag you kicking and screaming to button 9. Well, I shall accost you with, what's it called? Diagrams. Come, let us consider a tale of two Jedi. We have Qui-Gon Jinn, who is known for being flexible, loving, rational, laid-back, egalitarian, lucid, cooperative, kind, and Mace Windu. Ha ha ha! Good old Mace Windu, who is known for acting rigid, fearful, superstitious, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel. Sturgeon's Law reminds us that 90% of everything sucks, and good old Mace is the poster boy for that. These attributes describe 90% of humans, 90% of meditation teachers. And when we follow their advice, when we follow the advice of the rigid and the controlling, we get crappy results. When we start getting into breathing exercises, sometimes described as pranayama, that's not meditation. That's deliberately trying to alter our body. And that can thrust us into something akin to a gilded cage, where we can only meditate when we feel a certain way and not when we feel other ways. The great Buddhist reformer Prahe Vajra of present-day Pakistan known as Garab Dorje in Tibet, taught that as we relax into our exhalation, whatever pleasure or pain we might have noticed during our previous inhalation could feel as if it was melting into the simplicity of just physical sensations, just physical energy. And so we're not ignoring what we feel, but we're not trying to control what we feel. We're not allowing what we feel to define us. And that is not done through philosophy. That is not done through belief. That is done simply by cooperating with our autonomic nervous system. Let's take a deeper look at that. When we actively compete against our autonomic nervous system, by actively focusing and actively analyzing in a very contrived manner, we wind up exhausting the dorsolateral and medial prefrontal cortex. This can cause us to present with symptoms of depression, no less trigger our amygdala, the seat of anxiety and aggression. This is why someone can wear fancy robes and burn incense and chant, but because of their active focus, they get super cranky and super anxious and super superstitious, which are antithetical to peace and love. I think you'd agree. So here's the wild thing. When we do cooperate with both facets of our autonomic nervous system, which is just a fancy name for our spinal cord, the anger and let's try this again. The anxiety and aggression of our amygdala is calmed. Very cool. But wait, there's more. Additionally, the empathy of our anterior cingulate gyrus is gently stimulated. Very nice. So I'm going to go back. So the individual wrote that some people told him or her that when they meditate and they notice a thought, they notice a perception, emotion, intention, thought, memory, or imagining, they should go straight back to to their breath. But coming back to our breath is concentrating. Concentrating is we are choosing what to notice. Mindfulness is the opposite. We are noticing vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly. You see, every time we inhale, we're already wired to automatically access the middle bit of our spinal cord, known as the sympathetic nervous system. And that causes this type of mindfulness to happen effortlessly. The type of wherein we notice, once again, mind's antics of perception, emotion, intention, cognition, recollection, imagination, without any picking and choosing and pushing and pulling, being completely vulnerable to whatever comes up, whether it's external or internal, physical or mental, pleasurable or painful, interesting or boring, glorious or grotesque. But the individual asking for advice mentioned their frustration and being told to let go of what they were experiencing, which is far easier said than done. How do we do that? Simple. Every time we exhale, we are already wired to automatically access the tippy top and the very bottom of that same spinal cord. These two extreme regions. There's a fancy word for that. Anyway, these two extreme regions are known as the parasympathetic nervous system, and they help us to physically relax to such a degree that which we noticed during our previous inhalation could, fleetingly feel less stressful, less permanent, less defining, and even as non-graspable as a vast empty void. Any good English teacher will remind us that a simile is only as useful as it is relatable. So we have to ask the question, what? What is a real-world example of a non-graspable, vast empty void? How about the illusion of the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morn, which although could look tantalizing to the eye, could feel non-graspable to the hand? And so there you have it. Both emptiness and no self or selflessness are just metaphors to describe the sensations latent within every exhalation. And it is setting aside our habit of actively competing against our autonomic nervous system and passively cooperating with our autonomic nervous system that helps us to access this relief. And yes, this relief only lasts as long as our exhalation. And then once our next inhalation begins, the cycle begins afresh, but that's fine. That's the adventure. Just as we have to breathe in and out if we want to live, we have to notice and release continually in a cycle if we wish to thrive. So the individual was brought up the question of falling asleep. So there's wonderful things to think about here. If we meditate lying down, we will most likely fall asleep. That's why most people meditate sitting upright, not slouching on an easy chair, because that'll knock us out. But sitting up as tall as we can is energizing. And energy is the third enlightenment factor. Additionally, if someone is drowsy, there are things we can do with our eyes. There are many variables. We can squeeze our eyes tight. We can relax. We gently close our eyes. We can open our eyes wide. We can keep our eyes at half-mast. We might gaze at the earth. We might gaze at the sky. We might gaze at the horizon. Listen to your body. If someone tells you there's only one way, they're probably coming from a place of rigidity and elitism and are best disregarded. Listen to your body. Additionally, drowsiness is a wonderful barometer. Are we getting enough sleep? Are we sleeping in harmony with our circadian rhythms? Are we getting enough food, fresh air, exercise? Are we getting enough whole, fresh, organic fruits, vegetables, seeds, nuts, legumes, grains, fungus, and the like? The healthier our lifestyle, everything affects everything. That's one of the lessons of dialectic materialism. Everything affects everything. And so all these lifestyle variables will affect the quality of our meditation. But here's something that's really scary. When we're doing everything right and our body is still tired, we have to give it what it needs. We ignore our body's cries for food or water or rest at our peril. These impulses evolve to keep us alive, and only a fool ignores them. So I want to quickly check. So I've talked about all the things that happen as we inhale and all the things that happen as we exhale. The most efficient way for us to cooperate with this process is as follows. Every time we feel our chest swell with air, silently and mentally recite the verb watch. Every time we feel our chest subtly sink as gently we exhale, silently and mentally recite the verb rest. That is the key to watching mind's antics and resting in its non-graspable aspect. I want to check real quickly for any questions I might have failed to answer. Let's go back to button 8. Let's try to go back to button 8. Okay, diaphragm, pass. Yes, so once again, we watch the thoughts as we breathe in, we relax as we breathe out, and that's all we need to do. Now, the person said something very interesting here. I'd like to know about my subconscious blockages that could be holding me back. So the myth of subconscious blockages is the key to getting rich if you're a charlatan and you wish to exploit your students. There's nothing, we don't need to worry about that. We notice what comes up when it comes up. And then as we breathe with our body's tendency to relax. That's it. So here it reads, I'm not sure if I'm discovering anything. And so there is this great big Gnostic myth that enlightenment is about coming to understand something we have failed heretofore to understand. And once again, that is a tool that charlatans use to sell us another book or another ritual or another counseling session. What is enlightenment? The answer could blow your mind. The answer can make you download in your pants. The Buddha taught in the second to the last passage of his discourse on the four bases of mindfulness, known in Pali as the Satipatthana Sutta, that one could master his path in as little as 7 days. That's radical. It also infers that enlightenment is not as simply getting so good at the Buddha's tool chest that we're able to use it spontaneously, habitually, easily, and effectively. It doesn't mean we become otherworldly and we stop feeling emotions or we start walking through walls. It doesn't mean we become Gandalf the Grey. It simply means we get so good at mindfulness and meditation, practicing maybe once every 12 hours or so, that the remaining 6 folds of the path take care of themselves. That whether we want to or not, we cannot help but notice change. Whether we want to or not, we cannot help but experience kind intention. We cannot help but perform kind communication, kind conduct, and kind commerce. We cannot help but allow our choices and utterances and deeds to flow from love's deeply centered spontaneity. These things become automatic and involuntary. The key to using the front of our brain in the most efficient way is this centered spontaneity. When we force it, it goes horribly wrong. But when we let it flow, it works out magnificently. And this is illustrated quite humorously in the wonderful Bill Murray movie, Groundhog's Day. There's a portion of the movie where he's trying to use every trick in the book to win his love interest's heart. And it just gets, and every time he tries, it gets worse and worse and worse and worse. When finally he stops trying, she falls in love with him. Instead, he's just moving from love's deeply centered spontaneity without agenda. his best, his most wondrous dreams come true. So this is all we need. Simply by playing with mindfulness and meditation, our most wondrous dreams come true in the most wonderful way. Not necessarily the way we think or fear or hope or dread, but from my experience, in the most wonderful way. Having completed our opening lesson, let us now shift gears. It is Qui-Gon Jinn Tuesday evening. At least it is here in Southern California. Come, let us meditate like a Jedi after about 30 seconds of housekeeping. This is the Dzogchen Semde Lama, Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. For more than 30 years, I have harnessed my autistic special interests as well as my ADHD hyperfocus to spend about 8 hours a day, almost every day, studying, practicing, mastering, and reverse engineering the teachings and techniques of each school of meditation so that I can become your personal, nerdy, neurodivergent guide to nirvana. Welcome, my friend, to meditate like a Jedi, which is made possible due to the generosity of viewers just like you. Once again, the key to mindfulness, the key to watching the antics of mind is to silently and mentally recite the verb watch each time we feel our chest swell as we inhale. And the key to meditation, the key to relaxing into the non-graspable aspect of mind is to simply silently and mentally recite the verb rest each time we feel our chest subtly sink as gently we exhale. Now, the moment you have a specific question about the philosophies or meditations of Taoism, Buddhism, Tantra, Dzogchen, Zen, or Mahamudra, do not hesitate to type your question in great detail in the chat window, for I do tend to check for questions every 5 minutes or so. The free fall of meditation can be deeply jarring and exciting to our controlling tendencies. A workaround is for us to play with a variation of Bengali crease counting. Let us touch the tip of our left thumb to the lowest set of creases upon its little finger, thus keeping track of our first set of 16 inhalations. Let us now rest this left hand palms up in our lap. Every time we silently and mentally recite the verb watch as we feel our chest swell with breath, we can advance our right thumb up the creases and tips of its fingers. Let us do this together right now, beginning with our little finger. Clearly, I've run out of places upon which to touch the tip of my right thumb. That means it's time to return my attention to my left hand and advance the left thumb up its little finger. And so now you get the basic idea of how we can count 16 sets of 16 inhalations each. Counting 16 inhalations takes a little more than a minute. Counting 16 sets of 16 inhalations takes a little more than 20 minutes. We could keep track of our first collection of 20 minutes by resting the tip of our right middle finger. Let's try this again. By resting the great knuckle, the base of our right middle finger, upon the tip of our left middle finger, palms up in our lap. When we begin collecting our second 20 minutes, we could slide our right middle finger so that its middle knuckle comes to rest upon the tip of our left middle finger. And when we begin collecting our final, or our third collection of 20 minutes, I should say gathering for our third collection of 20 minutes, we can slide once again our right middle finger so that its higher knuckle comes to rest upon the tip of our left middle finger. All the while our hands are palms up in our lap. Overwhelmed? The antidote is repetition. Practice with me once every 12 hours or so, and within a week or two, this system you could master. welcome aboard. The key to mindfulness is to silently and mentally recite the verb watch each time we feel our lungs swell with breath. The key to meditation is to silently and mentally recite the verb rest each time we feel our chest subtly sink as gently we exhale. The moment you have a specific question about Buddhist or Taoist meditation or philosophy, do not hesitate to type your question in great detail in the chat window, for I tend to check for questions about once every 5 minutes or so. Remember, the most efficient way to practice mindfulness, that is merely watching the antics of mind, is to silently and mentally recite the verb watch every time we feel our lungs swell with air. And the most efficient way to practice the meditation that is merely relaxing into the aspect of mind which could feel non-graspable is to silently and mentally recite the verb rest each time we feel our chest subtly sink as gently we exhale. you have taken your first step into a much larger world. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel. In approximately 11 hours, I would very much like to return to lead tomorrow's first session of Q&A and then meditating like a Jedi. And if you are as geeky as me, may the Force be with you always.